The poor girl was sad to see all the children dressed up. But a young billionaire surprised everyone. Thomas pushed open the glass door of the law office and stepped out onto the street. The envelope with the stamped documents was folded in the inner pocket of his jacket. Another signature, another deal closed, routine, but he didn't get into the car. The chauffeur was waiting on the corner, leaning against the hood of the black sedan. Thomas waved him off. Today he was going to walk. He wasn't sure why. Maybe he just needed some air, or maybe he was tired of always going from one place to another without seeing anything in between. He turned left and walked along the sidewalk. The streets were old. Low houses, crooked trees, faded facades, nothing like the neighborhoods he was usually in. Nothing planned, nothing polished, just life happening slowly. Thomas shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and kept walking. There was a small coffee shop on the corner. An older woman sweeping the sidewalk, a dog lying in the shade. Everything seemed simpler here. More real, maybe. He turned another corner and saw the school, pale yellow building, large windows, green railings, and balloons. Lots of colorful balloons tied at the entrance, swaying in the wind. There were streamers strung across the walls and posters taped to the windows. Thomas slowed his pace. There was movement at the door, children arriving. Parents accompanying them, and all the children were in costumes. A boy ran past dressed as a superhero, his red cape flapping. A girl dressed as a witch held her mother's hand and laughed. Another boy was wearing a pirate costume with a hat and an eye patch. A costume party. Thomas stopped on the sidewalk across the street. He didn't know why he was watching. Maybe just curiosity, or maybe it felt good to see something that had nothing to do with contracts and numbers. That's when he saw the little girl. She was sitting alone on the sidewalk, leaning against the school wall. Small, blonde hair pulled back in a slightly crooked ponytail, and her face was sad. It wasn't a tantrum, it wasn't whining, it was genuine sadness. Her light eyes were fixed on the school entrance, where the other children passed by laughing, jumping, showing off their costumes, and she just watched, with that still look of someone who wants to go in but knows they can't. She was wearing ordinary clothes, white top, jeans, no costume. A tear rolled down her face. She wiped it away quickly with the back of her hand, but another one soon appeared. She hugged a pink backpack to her chest, as if that could help. Thomas felt something tighten in his chest. He crossed the street without much thought. When he got closer, he realized the girl was quite small. She must have been about 5 years old. Her light eyes were red around the edges. She was trying not to cry, but her chin was trembling. Thomas stopped a few feet from her. He crouched down, meeting her eye level. "Why aren't you going into the party?" The girl slowly turned her face. She looked at him suspiciously, but she didn't get up, she didn't run away. She just stayed there, holding her backpack, trying to swallow her tears. "I don't have a costume," she said, her voice thin but firm even while trembling. Thomas looked at her. He saw another tear roll down. He saw her wipe it away again, embarrassed. "And if you could choose, which costume would you wear?" She thought about it, bit her lip. Her light eyes sparkled a little, even though they were wet. "A fairy." "That sparkles." The answer came out softly but with conviction. Thomas nodded. "Wait here." He stood up and walked away quickly, without explaining anything. The girl stayed seated, watching him leave with wide, uncomprehending eyes. Thomas rounded the corner. He had seen a store nearby, one of those general stores, toys, school supplies, costumes hanging on racks. He found it in less than 3 minutes. He walked in. The doorbell above the door jingled. He went straight to the back. He scanned the costumes. Pink princess, butterfly, superheroine, and then he saw it. A fairy costume, lilac, simple, with a tulle skirt and small plastic wings that sparkled when the light hit them. He picked it up without looking at the price. He went to the counter, paid with cash, grabbed the little bag, and went back out to the street without waiting for the change. When he returned to the school, the girl was still there. Same position. But when she saw him, she lifted her face. The tears had dried, but her eyes were still red. And there was something different in them now, hope mixed with the fear of disappointment. He held out the little bag. "Here." The girl took it slowly, as if she couldn't believe it. She carefully opened it, peered inside. Then she pulled out the costume. She held it in her hands. She ran her fingers over the wings that reflected the sunlight, and then the sadness was gone. It wasn't gradual, it was instant. Her face transformed, her light eyes truly shone. And she smiled. She smiled that huge smile that only a child can manage, with her whole face. Before Thomas could say anything, she dropped her backpack on the ground and threw herself at him. Her thin arms squeezed his waist tightly. Her blonde head rested on his jacket. She held on hard, as if she wanted to be sure that this was real. Thomas stood there, still unsure of what to do. He wasn't used to this. Children's hugs. Hugs without an agenda, with nothing but pure gratitude. He lifted his hand and patted her lightly on the back. "Go on, enjoy the party." She let go, picked up the costume and her backpack, and ran off. She ran toward the school entrance, the wings swinging in her hand, her blonde hair flying behind her, and she was laughing now. Laughing as she ran. Thomas stood there, motionless on the sidewalk. He saw when she went inside. He saw the teacher smile at her. He saw her disappear through the door, likely rushing to put on the costume, and then he was alone again. The street noise returned, cars passing, someone honking far away, the wind in the leaves, life going on. But Thomas didn't move. There was something in his chest. It wasn't exactly happiness. It wasn't pride. It was something else, something he couldn't name. He had seen a sad child and he had made her smile, just that, but it felt like more. It felt like, for a few minutes, he had made a difference. Not with money thrown at foundations, not with automatic donations at the end of the year, but with a simple gesture, direct, real. He had seen the sadness on her face, the tears she was trying to hide, the way she was squeezing her backpack, and he had done something. Thomas took a deep breath. He ran his hand over his face, looked up at the sky, then looked back at the school door. The girl didn't reappear. She must be inside now, dressed up, happy, just like the other children. Children forget quickly, but he wouldn't forget. He didn't know why, but he knew he wouldn't. He stood there for a few more seconds, listening to the muffled sound of music coming from the school, watching the last parents go in. Then he turned and started walking back. He put his hands in his pockets. He followed the same sidewalk. He passed the coffee shop again, the dog lying in the shade, but as he walked, the tightness in his chest didn't go away, and he didn't want it to. Because it had been a long time, a very long time since something had touched him like that. Without reason, without explanation, it just touched him. And Thomas didn't know what to do with that feeling. He didn't know why a 5-year-old girl sitting alone on a sidewalk, quietly crying, had affected him so deeply. He didn't know why her sadness had mattered so much. He didn't know why her smile, when it appeared, had been imprinted in his memory. But it was. And he knew, somehow, that this feeling wasn't going to fade easily. The street remained the same. Old, quiet, unhurried, but something had changed. He didn't know what. He just knew it had. And that maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the last time he saw that blonde girl with the light eyes. Thomas tried to return to his routine. The next day, he woke up at the usual time, had coffee while checking messages on his phone, put on the grey suit that was laid out for him. He got in the car, went to the 9 o'clock meeting, had lunch with a client, signed papers, approved budgets. He did everything he always did, but he couldn't stop thinking about the girl. Her face kept popping up at the strangest moments. In the middle of a presentation, during a phone call, while signing a contract, he saw the light eyes full of tears. He saw the way she hugged the pink backpack to her chest. He saw the smile that had transformed her entire face, and he felt that tightness in his chest again. In the 4th meeting of the day, Thomas realized he wasn't paying attention. The financial manager was talking about quarterly projections, charts going up and down on the screen, numbers that used to matter. But Thomas could only think, did she go to the party? Did she like the costume? Were the other children nice to her? He shook his head, trying to push the thoughts away. It didn't make sense. She was just a child he had helped for a few minutes. Nothing more. She had probably already forgotten. Children forget quickly. Her life had moved on. His life should move on too, but it didn't. That night, lying in bed in his quiet apartment, Thomas stared at the ceiling. The room was large, well decorated, with expensive furniture and a beautiful view of the city, everything in place, everything organized, everything empty. He closed his eyes and the girl returned. Only this time, along with her, came another image. Older, more faded, but still there. An 8-year-old boy sitting alone during school recess. The other children were playing in the yard, running, shouting, laughing, forming small groups, sharing snacks, inventing games, and he stayed sitting in a corner near the wall, pretending he didn't want to play, pretending everything was fine, pretending it didn't matter. But it did matter. He wished someone would call him over. He wished someone would ask if he wanted to play ball or tag or anything. But no one asked, and he didn't have the courage to ask, so he just stayed there. Invisible. Thomas opened his eyes. It had been years since he had thought about this. He had buried those memories beneath accomplishments, money, success. He had built a life where no one could ignore him, where everyone wanted his attention, his time, his approval. But deep down, that boy was still there, invisible, waiting, ashamed to ask. And the girl on the sidewalk was the same, sitting there, alone, watching the other children go in, wanting to enter but unable to. Without a costume. Without the courage to go in anyway. Invisible. Thomas sat up in bed. He ran his hands over his face. Now he understood why he couldn't forget. It wasn't pity. It wasn't kindness. It was recognition. He had seen in her something he knew well, something that still hurt even after so many years, the feeling of being on the outside. And for a few minutes, he had changed that. Not with money thrown from afar, not with an anonymous donation to some institution, but by being there, seeing her, doing something simple that had changed everything in that moment. It wasn't charity, it was connection, and that had stirred something deep inside him, something he didn't even know still existed. In the following days, Thomas continued to work. He continued to have meetings, close deals, solve problems, but the girl didn't leave his mind. He caught himself driving through the neighborhood where the school was. He had no reason to be there, no meeting, no appointment, but he went anyway. He drove slowly past the school, looked at the sidewalk where she had been sitting, empty now. He felt something that resembled disappointment. He went back to the office, tried to concentrate. He couldn't. That night, he ate dinner alone in his apartment. Expensive food, well prepared, tasteless. He kept thinking, where did she live? With whom? Why didn't she have a costume? Did her mother work a lot? Was her father around? Questions that didn't make sense. He didn't know her. He didn't know her story. He had no reason to care so much. But he did care, and the more he tried to forget, the more the need grew. He needed to see her again. He didn't know exactly why. He had no plan. He had no excuse. He just knew that that brief encounter had stirred something he didn't know needed stirring. It had opened a door that had been closed for a long time, and now he couldn't close it again. On Friday, Thomas left the office early. He told his secretary he had an appointment. He didn't. He just needed to get out of there. He got in his car and Guiman, without much thought, drove to the neighborhood. He passed the school again. Children were leaving, parents picking them up, kids running, backpacks swinging. He searched with his eyes, blonde hair, light eyes, pink backpack. He didn't see her. He kept driving through the neighborhood streets, slowly, with no fixed destination, just looking. And then he thought, she must live nearby. A child that age wouldn't walk to school alone if it was far. She must live right there in the neighborhood, in one of those old houses, or in a small apartment above the stores. Thomas stopped the car on a corner. What was he doing? Looking for a child he had seen once. Why? For what purpose? But even knowing it seemed strange, even knowing there was no explanation, he knew the answer. Because that girl had touched something dormant inside him. Because for the first time in a long time, he had felt truly alive. Because the simple gesture of giving a costume had meant more than all the deals he had closed in the past few years. And because, somehow, he felt that it wasn't over. That encounter on the sidewalk wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Thomas took a deep breath. He drove around the block one more time. He passed a small diner, a pharmacy, a newsstand, and then he decided he was going to come back. He was going to look. He was going to find her. He didn't know when. He didn't know how, but he would, because he needed to. Thomas spent 4 days returning to the neighborhood, always in the late afternoon. After work, he drove through the same streets, past the school, searched with his eyes, blonde hair, pink backpack, light eyes, nothing. The following Monday, he was close to giving up. Maybe the family had moved. Maybe she was going to a different school now. Maybe he would never see her again. But even so, he went back. It was Tuesday, late afternoon. The sun was beginning to set, painting the old facades orange. Thomas parked his car on a side street and decided to walk for a bit. He passed the coffee shop, the pharmacy, a newsstand where a man was reading the paper leaning on the counter, and then he saw the diner. It was small, very small. It was nestled between a closed clothing store and a hair salon. The facade was simple, with a faded sign that just read, Diner. There were 3 small tables outside on the sidewalk and a few mismatched chairs. Thomas looked inside through the window. He didn't know why he was looking. He just looked. And that's when he saw the girl. She was sitting at a small table near the window, alone, drawing in a notebook, her tongue sticking out, deep in concentration. Her blonde hair was loose now, falling over her shoulders. The pink backpack was hanging on the chair beside her. Thomas's heart beat faster. It was her. He stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds, just watching. He didn't know what to do. Go in? Would it seem strange? Would it seem like he was following her? But before he could decide, his feet were already moving. He pushed the door open. An old bell jangled. The diner was even smaller inside. There were 6 small tables scattered around, a worn wooden counter at the back, a noisy coffee machine, shelves with bread and savory snacks behind a steamed-up glass. The smell of old coffee mixed with frying oil. There was a woman behind the counter, young, maybe about 27. Blonde hair pulled back in a low bun, a few loose strands framing her face. Light eyes the same shade as the girl's, pretty features, but tired, very tired. She was wearing a simple top and a stained apron. She was wiping the counter with a cloth, with the automatic movements of someone who had done this 1,000 times. When Thomas walked in, she lifted her eyes. She looked at him without smiling. It wasn't rude. She just didn't have the energy left to smile. "Good afternoon," Thomas said. She nodded. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you?" Her voice was steady, but there was an exhaustion in it, as if every word cost a little energy she didn't have. Thomas opened his mouth to answer, but couldn't, because at that moment, the girl looked up from her notebook, and she saw him. Her light eyes widened, her mouth stretched into a huge smile, and before Thomas could do anything, she dropped her pencil and pointed at him. "It was him!" she shouted. "He gave me the costume!" Thomas froze in the middle of the diner. The woman at the counter turned her head to him. She studied his face for a second, then she looked at the girl. "Are you sure?" "I am," the girl said, jumping off her chair. "It was him. I was sitting outside the school and he gave me the fairy costume, the lilac one, the one that sparkles." The woman dropped the cloth on the counter and walked around it. She walked toward Thomas. Her steps were slow but firm. She stopped about 6 feet from him, crossed her arms with sass and looked him right in the eye. "Was it you?" Thomas nodded. "It was." She stood there for a moment, just looking, as if she was trying to figure out why a man in an expensive suit had given a costume to a complete stranger on the street, and then her face softened a little. "Thank you," she said, her voice quieter now. She was so happy. It's been a long time since I've seen her like that. There was no drama in her voice, no exaggeration, just a fact spoken sincerely. Thomas didn't know what to say, so he just nodded and tried to smile. It came out a bit crooked, a little shy. "It was nothing." The girl came closer, still smiling. I put on the costume and went in, and everyone liked it. The teacher said I looked beautiful. Thomas looked at her and felt that tightness in his chest again. You did look beautiful. The woman watched the exchange between them. Then she sighed and returned to the counter. Leah, go back to your table and finish your homework. Leah. So that was her name. The girl made a face but obeyed. She went back to the small table, picked up her pencil again, but kept looking at Thomas occasionally, still smiling. Thomas stood still, not knowing what to do now. The woman, who must be her mother, judging by the identical eyes and the way she spoke to the girl, went back to wiping the counter. But now she looked at him differently. It wasn't suspicion, it was curiosity, perhaps. Thomas cleared his throat. The coffee here smells good. It came out a little awkwardly, a little forced. But it was true. The smell of coffee was everywhere. The woman stopped wiping. She looked at him, and for the first time a slight smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. The door's open, she said, simple and direct, and she went back to what she was doing. Thomas stood there for a second. Then he walked up to the counter and sat on one of the stools. A coffee, then black. She nodded and turned to the coffee machine. While she was brewing it, she didn't say anything. Thomas didn't either. He just sat there, listening to the noise of the machine, the sound of the street outside, Leah's pencil scratching the paper. She placed the cup in front of him. Strong coffee, good aroma. $2.50. Thomas took out his wallet and left $5 on the counter. Keep the change. She looked at the money, then at him. She didn't say thank you. She just took it and put it in her apron pocket. What's your name? She asked, resting her hands on the counter. Thomas. Claire. She didn't extend her hand. She didn't do the social performance of a handshake and smiles. She just said her name and continued looking at him, as if she was still trying to figure out who he was. Do you live around here? She asked. No. I just walk sometimes. She raised an eyebrow. She didn't believe him, but she didn't press it. And you? Thomas asked. Do you work here? It's mine. The diner. Thomas looked around. He saw the peeling walls, the old chairs, the coffee machine that was too loud. He also saw the neatly arranged bread, the clean floor, the organized counter. It's a good place, he said. And it was true, Claire shrugged. It pays the bills. Barely. She didn't say that, but Thomas heard it anyway. It was between the lines, in the tiredness in her eyes, in the stained apron that was probably the only one she had, in the way she had looked at the change he left. Leah appeared next to him, climbing onto the stool beside him. Are you going to come back more often? Leah, Claire began. I am, Thomas said, before Claire could finish. Leah smiled. That huge smile again. Good. You're nice. Claire shook her head, but didn't scold her. She just went back to the kitchen, probably to make more coffee or prepare something. Thomas slowly drank his coffee. He chatted a little with Leah, who showed him the drawing she was making, a house with trees and a dog. She talked about school, her teacher, a new friend she had made, and Thomas just listened. When he finished his coffee, he stood up. I have to go. Leah looked disappointed, but nodded. Claire came out of the kitchen. She looked at him. See you around, she said. It wasn't come back soon or it was a pleasure. Just see you around. Direct, no fuss. Thomas liked that. See you around. He left the diner and walked back to his car. But as he drove home, he realized he was smiling. He had found the girl. And more than that, he had found something he didn't know he was looking for. A place where he could simply be, without performance, without masks, without having to be anyone other than who he was. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Thomas returned the next day. He didn't plan it. He woke up, had coffee, put on more casual clothes this time, jeans and a simple shirt. He told the chauffeur he wouldn't need him today, and he went. He drove to the neighborhood with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't exactly anxiety. It was something like anticipation, as if he were going to meet someone important, even though that person was only 5 years old. When he walked into the diner, the doorbell jangled. Leah was at the same small table as yesterday. But this time, when she saw him, she jumped out of her chair and ran over. "You came back." Her light eyes sparkled. Her smile was huge. Thomas couldn't help but smile, too. "I did. I made something for you," she said, pulling him by the hand toward the table. There was a piece of paper on the table, a carefully torn sheet from a notebook, colored all over with crayons. Leah picked up the paper and held it out to him, proudly. "I made a drawing. It's a happy girl." Thomas carefully took the drawing. It was simple, childlike lines, colors going outside the lines. A girl in the center of the page, with her arms open, as if embracing the world. Or the sky. Her hair was yellow, from a poorly sharpened crayon. Her dress was purple, lilac. And around her the sky was blue, with a giant yellow sun in the upper corner. There were also some flowers underneath, red and pink, drawn as circles with petals. Nothing elaborate, no technique, no special talent, just pure emotion. Thomas looked at Leah. "Is it you?" She nodded, excited. "It is. It's me on the day of the party. When I put on the costume. Look, my arms are open because I was happy." Thomas felt that tightness in his chest again, stronger this time. "It's beautiful." "You can keep it," Leah said. "It's for you, because you were nice to me." Thomas carefully folded the paper, as if it was something valuable, and it was. He couldn't explain why, but it was. "I'll keep it," and he put it away. In the inner pocket of his jacket, close to his heart, Leah saw and smiled even wider. "Really? Are you really going to keep it?" "I am, forever." Claire was behind the counter. Thomas felt her gaze, but when he turned, she was already tinkering with the coffee machine. She didn't say anything, she didn't smile. She just kept working, but there was something different in the way she moved. A slight softening. Thomas sat at the small table with Leah. She had several notebooks scattered around, pencils, an eraser, a worn pencil case full of crayons with broken tips. "What are you working on?" "Homework," she made a face. "Math." Thomas looked at the sheet. Simple calculations. "Addition and subtraction. Is it hard?" "A little bit. I don't know this one." She pointed to a problem. 27 plus 15. Thomas pulled his chair closer. "Can I help?" Her eyes lit up. "You can." And so it began. Thomas helped with the calculations. He explained slowly, with patience. Leah was quick to understand, but sometimes she would get distracted, start talking about other things, about the teacher who wore funny glasses, about a blue butterfly she had seen during recess, about a cartoon with unicorns that she watched on Saturdays, and Thomas just listened. At some point, Claire brought him a coffee without him having to ask. She put it on the table gently and left without a word. Thomas took a sip. It was still hot, strong, good. When Leah finished her math homework, she showed him her notebooks, the drawing one, full of colorful scribbles, houses, trees, people with big heads and thin arms. The calligraphy one, with shaky but neat letters, some words repeated several times. House, cat, sun. The science one, with drawings of plants she had copied from the board. "What about you?" she asked suddenly. "What about me? Did you study when you were little?" Thomas smiled. "I did." "Did you like it?" He thought. He remembered the empty classrooms, the lonely recesses, the constant feeling of not belonging anywhere. "Sometimes." "I like it," Leah said, "but only when the teacher doesn't yell, and when I understand things. When I don't understand, I get sad." "Everyone gets sad when they don't understand." "It's normal." "You help me understand." Thomas felt something warm in his chest. "I'm happy to help." She smiled and went back to drawing on a blank sheet. Thomas stayed there, watching her movements, her concentration, the way she bit her lip when she was choosing a color, the care with which she held each pencil. Thomas spent another hour there, talking to Leah, listening to her stories, seeing her drawings. And not once did he feel bored. Not once did he look at his watch wanting to leave. When he finally stood up to go, Leah held his hand. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" "I am." "Promise?" "I promise." And he came back. The next day, Thomas was there again, and the next, and the next. It became a routine. Every late afternoon after work, he stopped at the diner. Sometimes he stayed for half an hour, sometimes 2. It depended on the day, the crowds, how much homework Leah had to do. Sometimes he just had coffee. He sat at the counter, slowly drank, watched the street movement through the window. The man who passed with his dog every day at the same time. The woman sweeping the sidewalk of the store next door. The old cars parked on the street. Claire worked in silence. She didn't force conversation. She didn't ask intrusive questions. And Thomas liked that. He liked the comfortable silence, the not having to explain anything. Other times, Leah was full of energy and wanted to show everything. A new book the teacher had given her, a shiny star sticker she had earned for good behavior, a story she had invented about a brave princess who saved the kingdom from a dragon. And Thomas listened to everything, every word, every detail, as if they were the most important things in the world. He helped with homework when she asked, math, English, science, simple things, but things that seemed huge to her, and when she got it right, the smile she gave made everything worthwhile. Leah started to trust him. She spoke more, laughed more. She told him things she probably didn't tell many people, how she was afraid of the dark and slept with a light on, how she wanted a dog, but her mum said they couldn't take care of one, how sometimes she missed having a dad like the other kids at school. She didn't say it with sadness, she just stated it as a fact, but Thomas felt the weight of it. He saw the shadow that passed over her light eyes, and he never knew what to reply, so he just stayed there, listening, present. Claire watched everything. At first, she kept her distance. She worked, cleaned, served the few customers who showed up. But Thomas noticed her gaze, studying him, trying to figure out who he was, why he came back, what he wanted. Thomas didn't blame her. If he were in her shoes, he would be suspicious too. But little by little, Claire started to relax. It started small. A good afternoon, when he came in. The usual, when he sat at the counter. A comment about the weather or the slow business of the day, or a difficult customer who had complained about the coffee. Nothing deep. Just enough to show that she no longer saw him as a threat. It was a Thursday, almost 2 weeks after he had first walked in there, that Claire truly talked. It was close to 7 in the evening. The diner was empty. The last customer had left about 20 minutes ago. Leah had finished her homework and was drawing again, lost in her own world of crayons and paper. Thomas was sitting at the counter, having his second coffee of the night. Claire was cleaning the coffee machine, her movements slow and tired, like someone who had done this 1,000 times. "Don't you get tired of coming here?" she asked suddenly. Thomas looked at her. "No, it's small, simple. Nothing special." "That's exactly why." She stopped cleaning and looked at him, frowning slightly. "What do you mean?" Thomas thought before answering. "My life is complicated, full of people wanting things, full of meetings, contracts, decisions, full of noise. It's different here. Here is real." Claire didn't say anything for a moment. Then she went back to cleaning. "Real," she repeated, as if testing the word. "That's one way to put it." Thomas didn't reply. He just took another sip of his coffee. Claire sighed. She dropped the cloth on the counter and rested her hands on it, looking down. "Life is tough," she said, more to herself than to him. "I wake up at 5 in the morning. I prepare everything. I open at 6. I stay until 8 at night. I do everything alone. I cook, I clean, I serve, I handle customers, I do the shopping, I pay the bills, I wash the dishes, I organize the stock." She lifted her eyes and looked at Leah. "And I still have to take care of her. Take her to school in the morning, pick her up in the afternoon, help with homework, make dinner, give her a bath, put her to bed. And at the end of the day, when I finally lie down, It's almost time to wake up again." There was no self-pity in her voice, just tiredness, deep tiredness. Thomas remained silent. He let her speak. "And the worst thing isn't even the tiredness," Claire continued. "It's the fear, constant fear, of not being able to pay the rent at the end of the month, of getting sick and not being able to work, of something happening to her and me, not being able to protect her. Fear that one day I just won't be able to handle it." She wiped her hands on her apron and crossed her arms, as if protecting herself. Her father left when she was 2. He just walked away, said he hadn't asked to be a father, that he wasn't ready. And he never came back, never called, never sent anything, never cared if she was okay, if she was eating, if she was sleeping, nothing. Her voice was harsher now. "Since then, it's just me. And sometimes I don't know if I'm doing enough. I look at her and I see everything she doesn't have. New clothes, toys, outings, a costume for the school party." Claire stopped, took a deep breath, ran her hand over her face. "And then you show up, out of nowhere. You give her a costume. You come back the next day. You keep coming back every day. And I keep wondering, why? What do you want?" Thomas looked into her light eyes, so similar to Leah's, but more tired, more guarded. "Nothing," he said, simple and direct. "Nobody does anything without wanting something in return." "I do." Claire studied him, looking for a lie. Looking for a hidden motive, looking for the trick. She didn't find it. "You're strange," she said, but without malice, almost with curiosity. "I know." She almost smiled. Almost, "Leah likes you. She waits for you to arrive every day. She gets excited when the doorbell rings. She talks about you when you're not here. Is Thomas coming today? Has Thomas left work yet?" Thomas felt something tighten in his chest. "She's a good girl." "She is," Claire said, and this time the tone was softer. There was love there, a lot of love. "She's the best thing I've ever done, even if it's hard, even if I don't have money, even if I haven't slept properly in 5 years. Even if sometimes I'm so tired I can barely stand. She's worth everything." Thomas nodded. "I see that. You do. I do. In the way you look at her, in the way you work non-stop to give her a life, in the way you worry about every detail. I see it." Claire was silent. She looked down. She blinked a few times, quickly. After a moment, she picked up the cloth again and went back to cleaning. "You can keep coming if you want," she said without looking at him. "Leah likes it, and it's not bad to have someone around who doesn't want anything." Thomas smiled. "I'll keep coming then." And he did. Days turned into weeks. And Thomas was there almost every day. It became part of the routine, part of the scenery, part of that little world inside the diner. He got to know the regular customers, the man who came every day at 7 in the morning for coffee and to read the paper at the corner table, the elderly woman who bought bread to take home and always complained that it was expensive but bought it anyway, the young man who worked at the pharmacy and always ordered orange juice with ice. He learned Leah's preferences. She loved chocolate truffles but hated carrots. She liked drawing but didn't like writing compositions. She loved princess stories, but only if they were brave and weren't waiting for any prince. And he got to know Claire, little by little, piece by piece. He discovered she was 27 but looked older because of the tiredness. That she had bought the diner with the little money she had saved working 2 jobs at once. That she had no family nearby. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 22, leaving behind only debts. That she had raised Leah alone since her father left, with no help from anyone, and Thomas never offered pity. He never said, "I'm sorry," with that tone that made her seem unfortunate. He never tried to fix things with money or easy solutions. He was just there. He listened when she wanted to talk. He was quiet when she didn't. He drank coffee. He helped Leah with her homework. And he left without making a fuss, and somehow that was enough. Because Claire didn't need someone to solve her problems. She needed someone who was just there, without judging, without pressuring, without wanting anything. And Thomas discovered that he needed that too. A place where he wasn't the successful businessman, he wasn't the rich man, he was no one but Thomas, a guy who liked to drink bad coffee in a small diner. Just a guy who liked to listen to a 5-year-old girl tell endless stories about unicorns and butterflies. A guy who liked to be there, simply because he wanted to. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough. It was everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sky was cloudy and the cold wind came in through the door every time someone opened it. Thomas walked into the diner at the usual time. The doorbell jangled and he automatically looked at the corner table. Leah was there, but she wasn't drawing as usual. She was hunched over her notebook, her brow furrowed, her pencil suspended in the air. Her blonde hair fell over her face. The expression was one of pure frustration. Thomas walked straight to her. "Hi." She lifted her face. Her light eyes were worried. "Hi," she said, her voice small. "Is everything okay?" She bit her lip and looked at the notebook again. "I can't do it," she said. "It's hard." Thomas pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "Can I see?" She pushed the notebook toward him. It was a language arts exercise. She had to write sentences using specific words. Leah had done 3 das, but the 4th was incomplete. She had written "the cat," but couldn't continue. "Can you help me?" she asked, looking at him. "Mommy is working." Thomas looked at the counter. Claire had her back to them, preparing sandwiches for a customer. She hadn't stopped all day. "Of course I can," he said. Leah sighed in relief. Thomas looked at the word and cat. "What do you know about cats?" she thought. "They go meow, and they're fluffy." Then you can write, "The cat is fluffy," or "The cat goes meow." Her eyes lit up. "I can. You can." She picked up the pencil and wrote slowly, carefully forming the letters. "The cat is fluffy." When she finished, she looked at him, waiting for approval. "It's perfect." She smiled, that smile that still affected him every time. "What's next?" The next word was tree. They worked together. Thomas didn't give her the answers. He asked questions. He let her think. And when she got it right, he praised her. It took almost half an hour to finish the entire assignment. Leah misspelled some words, erased, wrote again. But she didn't give up. And Thomas stayed there the whole time, unhurried, without looking at his watch. When she finally finished the last sentence, Leah closed the notebook firmly and smiled proudly. "I did it." "You did it. And all by yourself." "It wasn't by myself. You helped me." "I just asked questions. You thought of the answers." She tilted her head, thinking, "But you stayed here with me." Thomas nodded. "I did." Leah was quiet for a moment. She looked at him with that intensity that only a child has. "You're nice," she said suddenly. Thomas almost laughed. "Thank you. You like coming here because we're here, right?" The question caught him off guard, not because it was difficult to answer, but because she had hit the nail on the head. Thomas looked at her serious little face waiting for an answer. "I do." "I like it when you come too," she said simply. "It's nice." And she went back to drawing, as if she hadn't just said something that stirred Thomas's heart. He stayed there, sitting, watching her draw, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. Claire appeared at the table a few minutes later. She brought a coffee for Thomas and juice for Leah. "There you go, sweetie." "Sorry it took so long." "It's okay, Mommy. Thomas helped me with my homework." Claire looked at the closed notebook, then at Thomas. There was something different in her eyes, something softer. "Thank you," she said. It wasn't a formal thank you. It was real. "It was nothing," Thomas said. Claire put the drinks on the table and stood there for a second, looking at the two of them. Thomas sitting next to Leah, Leah drawing peacefully. The notebook closed, homework finished. And for the first time since Thomas had started frequenting the diner, Claire smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It was a small, restrained smile that only appeared at the corner of her mouth and in her eyes. But it was real. She didn't say anything. She just smiled. And then she went back to the counter, but Thomas saw it, and he understood. She was starting to trust him. Not completely. There were still guards up. There was still that natural mother's protectiveness that doesn't let anyone get too close to her child. But something had changed. She no longer saw him as a stranger. She no longer saw him as a threat. She saw him as someone who stayed. Thomas slowly drank his coffee. Leah showed him the drawing she was making, a house with a garden and a dog in front. They talked about silly things, about her day at school, about the teacher who had given out gold stars, about recess, and Thomas listened to everything, as if they were the most important things in the world. The diner gradually emptied, and then it was just the three of them, Leah drawing, Thomas drinking coffee, Claire wiping the empty tables, tidying up. No one talked much, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that only happens when people are comfortable with each other. The kind of silence of people who don't need to fill every second with words. At some point, Thomas looked at his watch. It was 7:30. 2.5 hours had passed without him realizing it. "I have to go," he said, standing up. Leah looked disappointed, but didn't complain. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" "I am." "Can you help me with math tomorrow?" "I can." She smiled and went back to her drawing. Thomas walked up to the counter. Claire was drying some cups. "How much do I owe you?" $2.50. He left $5 on the counter, as usual. Claire took it and put it away without saying anything. But when he was almost at the door, she spoke. "Thomas." He turned. She was standing behind the counter, with the cloth in her hand. "Thank you," she said again, "for helping her, for being here." It wasn't just about the homework. Thomas knew that. It was about everything, about all the times he had shown up, about all the times he had stayed. "I like being here," he said, and it was true. Claire nodded. The slight smile returned. Just for a second, but it returned. "We like you being here too." Thomas felt something warm in his chest. He waved to Leah, who waved back without taking her eyes off her drawing, and he left. The cold wind hit his face as soon as he stepped onto the sidewalk. The street was dark, with only a few streetlights on. Thomas put his hands in his pockets and walked to his car. But before getting in, he looked back. The diner was lit up. He could see Leah still sitting at the table. He could see Claire moving behind the counter. And for the first time in a long time, Thomas felt he was in the right place, doing the right thing, being who he needed to be. Not the businessman, not the rich man, just Thomas. And that was enough. He got in the car and drove home. But the tightness in his chest remained, that good tightness. Of someone who found something they didn't know they were looking for and didn't want to let go anymore. It was a Friday when Thomas made the invitation. He had just arrived at the diner. Leah was finishing her math homework, her tongue sticking out as usual when she was concentrating. Claire was wiping the counter, her movements slow, like someone at the end of a long day. Thomas stood at the door for a second, thinking about whether he should or shouldn't. He had thought about it all week. He had rehearsed it mentally several times, but now that he was there, the words seemed stuck. He took a deep breath and walked to the counter. "Claire," she lifted her eyes. "Hi, want coffee?" "I do, but I wanted to talk about something first." She stopped cleaning, looked at him with her full attention. "Is everything okay?" "It is. I wanted to invite you both out to dinner, you and Leah, at a restaurant, tomorrow, if you're free." Claire blinked. She hadn't expected that. "Dinner?" "Yeah. Nothing formal, just, I don't know. I thought it would be nice. You work so hard. It would be good to get out a bit." Claire looked at Leah, then back at him. "Thomas, if you don't want to, it's okay," he said quickly. "I just thought—" "It's not that," she interrupted. "It's just, I can't afford to pay for half, and I don't like—" "I'm inviting," Thomas said. "It's on me. No strings attached. Just dinner." Claire was silent. He saw the conflict in her light eyes, the desire to accept fighting against her pride, against the fear of being indebted, against the feeling of charity. "It's not charity," Thomas said, as if he had read her thoughts. "It's just, I wanted to do this for you both because I like being with you." Claire bit her lip, looked down, then at Leah again. "Let me think." "Of course." Thomas went to sit with Leah. He helped her finish the calculations, but he was tense the whole time, waiting for her answer. 10 minutes later, Claire appeared at the table with his coffee. "Okay," she said softly. "We'll go." Thomas smiled. "Really? Really? But nothing too expensive, okay? I promise." Leah had heard everything. She jumped out of her chair. "We're going out to dinner, really?" "Really?" Claire said, running her hand through her daughter's hair. "Can I wear my pink dress?" "You can." Leah clapped her hands with joy and went back to drawing, but now with a huge smile on her face. On Saturday, Thomas came to pick them up at 7 in the evening. He parked in front of the diner and got out of the car. Claire was locking the door. She was wearing a simple white top and jeans. Her blonde hair was loose, falling over her shoulders. Nothing fancy. But to Thomas it was everything. Leah came running out the side door that led to the apartment above the diner. She was wearing a pink dress, worn at the edges but clean and well cared for. Her hair was held back with a clip with a little flower. She was smiling from ear to ear. "Thomas, we're ready," he smiled. "You both look lovely." Claire looked away, a little embarrassed, but Leah twirled, making the dress fan out. "Do you like it?" "It's my best dress. It really is lovely." They got into the car. Leah got in the back seat, fascinated by the size of the car. Claire sat in the front seat, her hands in her lap, quiet. Thomas drove to a restaurant he knew. It wasn't too fancy, but it was good. Cozy, with wooden tables, soft lighting, gentle music playing in the background. When they walked in, the waiter led them to a table near the window. Leah climbed onto her chair and looked around with wide eyes. "It's pretty here." Claire picked up the menu, and Thomas saw her face change. She looked at the prices and swallowed hard. "Thomas, this is... just enjoy it," he said before she finished. "Tonight is just for enjoying." "Don't worry," she looked at him, still uncertain. "Seriously," Thomas insisted. "Order whatever you want, whatever Leah wants. Don't think about the price." Claire took a deep breath. Then she nodded. "Okay." Leah hadn't understood any of the conversation. She was just too excited looking at the menu with pictures. "Mommy, they have pasta." "Can I have pasta?" "You can, sweetie." "And ice cream. Do they have ice cream for dessert?" Claire looked at the menu. "They do." "Can I?" "You can." Leah clapped her hands. They ordered their food, pasta for Leah, a risotto for Claire, a steak with potatoes for Thomas. And while they waited, they talked. It started slowly. Simple things. The weather. The business at the diner. Leah's school. But little by little, the conversation became more relaxed. Thomas talked about his childhood. He didn't go into heavy details. He just told silly things, like how he used to climb trees and fall out, how he once tried to bake a cake and almost set the kitchen on fire, how he was afraid of dogs when he was little, until he met a tiny dog that changed his mind. Leah laughed at the stories. Claire smiled, relaxed for the first time since they arrived. "What about you?" Thomas asked Claire. "What was it like when you were a kid?" Claire thought. "I was pretty messy," she said. "My mom was always saying I couldn't sit still. I climbed trees, played in the street, came home covered in mud." "Really?" Leah's eyes widened. "You, Mommy?" "Really?" Claire laughed. "I was worse than you." Thomas liked seeing her laugh. It was rare, but when it happened, it transformed her entire face. "And did you have dreams?" he asked. "What did you want to be when you grew up?" Claire looked out the window for a second. "I wanted to be a veterinarian," she said, her voice quieter now. "I loved animals. I wanted to take care of them." "And why didn't you?" She shrugged. "Life happened. My parents died. I had to work. Then Leah came along, and it just didn't work out." There was no bitterness in her voice, just resignation. "But it's okay," she continued. "I like the diner. And I have Leah. That's more than a lot of people have." Thomas nodded. He didn't say anything. He just let her feel what she was feeling. The food arrived. Leah attacked the pasta with enthusiasm. Claire ate slowly, savoring every bite. Thomas realized she probably hadn't eaten out in a long time, maybe years. During dinner, they talked about silly things, movies they liked, music they listened to, places they wanted to visit someday. Leah said she wanted to see the beach. She had never seen the ocean. Claire said she wanted to see the mountains, places with snow. Thomas said he wanted to see simple places. Small towns, places where no one knew him. Leah didn't understand why anyone would want that, but Claire understood. She looked at him with that silent comprehension. When they finished eating, Leah asked for ice cream. Chocolate. It came in a large sundae glass with syrup and whipped cream. She ate it all, licking the spoon clean. Claire had coffee. Thomas did too. And they stayed there, talking a little more, unhurried. When they finally left, it was almost 10 o'clock. Leah got into the car, drowsy. Before they left the parking lot, she was already asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window. Thomas drove slowly through the empty streets. Claire was quiet next to him, looking out the window. "Thank you," she said suddenly. "For what?" "For this. For everything. I don't know. For being nice to us. It was good for me too." "Was it?" "It was." Silence for a few seconds, and then Claire spoke, still looking out the window. "Her father left when she was 2. Thomas didn't say anything. He just listened. "We fought a lot. He wasn't ready to be a dad. He said it had been a mistake, that he hadn't asked for it, and one day he just left. He packed his things and went. He never called, never sent anything, never cared if she was okay, if she was eating, if she was sick, nothing." Her voice was firm, but Thomas heard the pain underneath. "Since then, it's just me. Me and her. Against everything. It's always been that way, and it always will be." Thomas looked ahead, his hands on the steering wheel, thinking about what to say. "It doesn't have to be that way," he said, finally. Claire turned her face to him. "What do you mean? You held everything together alone, and you did an incredible job. Leah is happy. She's healthy. She smiles. That's all because of you." Claire looked away. "But it doesn't have to be that way anymore," Thomas continued. "If you let me, I can walk with you." Silence. Claire was looking ahead now, her hands in her lap, her face illuminated by the passing streetlights. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I like being with you. I like Leah. I like you. And if you let me, I want to stay here, not as someone passing through, as someone who stays." Claire took a deep breath. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because you make me feel real. Because for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in the right place, doing the right thing, being who I should be." He stopped the car at a red light, turned to look at her. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just saying that if you want me to, I can walk with you, in whatever way you allow, at whatever pace you want. But I want to be here." Claire looked at him, her light eyes sparkling a little in the dim car light. She didn't say anything. She didn't say yes, but she also didn't say no. She just stayed there, looking at him, as if she were trying to decide if she could trust him, if she could let someone in, if she could stop being just her. The light turned green. Thomas started driving again. Claire turned her face to the window again, and they were silent for the rest of the way. But it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't heavy. It was the silence of someone who was thinking, processing, feeling. When they arrived at the diner, Thomas parked. Claire didn't get out immediately. She stayed there, her hand on the door handle. "I need to think," she said softly. "I know. It's not easy for me to trust, to let someone in. I protect her with everything I have. And I can't make a mistake." "I know," Thomas repeated. "No rush." Claire finally opened the door. She went to the back seat and picked up Leah. The girl didn't even wake up. She just nestled her head on her mother's shoulder. "Thank you for dinner," Claire said. It was good. It was. Thomas agreed. She hesitated. Then, "You can keep coming. To the diner. If you want," Thomas smiled. "I will?" Claire nodded, and she went in through the side door, carrying Leah. Thomas stayed there for another minute, looking at the light that came on in the apartment above the diner. It hadn't been a romantic date. There had been no perfect movie moment. There had been no kiss or declaration, but it had been real, and it had been peaceful. For him, for her, for Leah. A moment where everything felt lighter, where everyone breathed easier, where everyone had simply been. Thomas started the car and drove away, but he knew something had changed. Claire hadn't said yes, but she hadn't said no either, and for now that was enough. It was a Thursday when Thomas offered a ride. The diner had closed earlier because Claire needed to take Leah to the doctor the next morning. Leah already had her backpack on, yawning. Claire was locking the door, tired as usual at the end of the day. Thomas was leaving with them. "Are you walking?" he asked. "We live right up here," Claire said, pointing to the apartment above the diner. Oh, but he actually already knew that. He just didn't know what else to say. They stood there on the sidewalk for a few seconds. Leah was holding her mother's hand, her eyes half closed. "Do you want me to walk you up?" Thomas asked. "Just to the top of the stairs, it's dark." Claire was going to refuse, he saw it in her eyes. But then she looked at the empty street, the burned-out streetlight on the corner, the heavy silence of the night. "Okay," she said. It wasn't far. They just had to go around the building and up the external staircase on the side. But Thomas went along anyway. The stairs were narrow and old. The concrete steps were cracked. The railing was loose in a few spots. Claire went first, Leah clinging to her. Thomas followed behind. When they reached the top, there was a worn wooden door. Claire opened it with her key. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome." Leah waved to him, drowsily. "Bye, Thomas." "Bye, Leah." But when Thomas started to go down, Claire spoke. "Thomas." He stopped. Turned around. She was standing in the doorway, Leah already inside the apartment. The faint light illuminated her tired face. Do you want to come in? Have a coffee?" Thomas was surprised. Claire had never invited him in. She had never let him see where they lived. "I do," he said. The apartment was small, very small. One room served as a living room and a bedroom at the same time. An old sofa, an antique TV, a small table. At the back, a tiny kitchen and a door that must lead to the bathroom. Another door, closed, must be Leah's bedroom. But it was clean, organized. There were Leah's drawings taped to the refrigerator. There was a colorful blanket on the sofa. There were plants in the window. Claire made coffee. Thomas sat on the sofa. Leah appeared in her pajamas, said goodnight, and went into her room. They drank coffee in silence for a few minutes. "It's small," Claire said suddenly, "but it's ours. It's cozy." She almost smiled. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not lying. It is." They talked a little more. About simple things, about the day, about plans for tomorrow. When Thomas finally left, it was almost midnight. He went down the stairs, walked to the car that was parked in front of the diner. But instead of getting in, he stopped on the sidewalk. He looked at the building, at the small apartment upstairs, at the empty, silent street. And then he started walking. He didn't quite know why. He just started walking through the neighborhood streets, turning corners, following without a destination. He passed the school where he had met Leah. He passed the store where he had bought the costume. He passed streets that were starting to feel familiar in a strange way. And then he turned onto a specific street and stopped. It was a narrow street. Old houses on both sides, old trees, broken sidewalk. And he knew that street. He knew every crack, every tree, every house, because he had lived there. The next day, when he went to the diner, Thomas was different, quieter, more thoughtful. Claire noticed. "Is everything okay?" "It is. I thought of something yesterday." "What?" He hesitated. "Do you two have anything to do right now?" "No." "Why?" "I wanted to show you something." Claire looked at him, curious, but she agreed. She closed the diner early, called Leah, and the three of them left together. Thomas drove, Claire in the front seat, Leah in the back, talking non-stop about school. He drove through the same streets he had walked the night before, turned the same corners, until he reached that specific street. He parked. "It's here," he said. Claire looked out the window. "Here is what?" Thomas turned off the car, took a deep breath. "I lived here. When I was a kid." Silence fell inside the car. Claire turned to look at him. Leah stopped talking. "Really?" Leah asked. "Really?" They got out of the car. Thomas stood on the sidewalk, looking. He pointed to a house in the middle of the street, small, painted faded beige, windows with bars, rusty iron gate. "There," he said. "It was there." Leah looked at the house with interest. Claire looked at Thomas. "You grew up here," she said, not as a question, as a statement. "I did." He started walking slowly down the sidewalk. They went with him. "We had almost nothing," Thomas began to speak. "My mom worked 2 jobs. She left early, came back late. I was alone most of the time." Leah held his hand. He didn't even notice at first. He just felt her small, warm hand in his. "The money was never enough," he continued. "Every month it was the same thing. Fear of not being able to pay the rent, fear of running out of food, fear of everything." He stopped in front of the house. "I remember being ashamed of not being able to buy the things the other kids had, of wearing old clothes, of not having money for lunch at school, of being invisible." Claire listened in silence, her light eyes fixed on him. "And I remember the fear," Thomas said, his voice softer now. "Constant fear. That something bad would happen, that we would lose the house, that my mom would get sick, of being truly alone." He was quiet for a moment, just looking at the house. "Why are you showing us this?" Claire asked softly. Thomas turned to look at her. "At Leah. Because when I saw Leah that day sitting on the sidewalk alone, I saw the boy I was, invisible, waiting for someone to notice." Leah squeezed his hand, "and when I gave her the costume, when I saw her smile, I felt that maybe that's why, maybe life brought me back to do things differently." He looked at Claire. "I didn't have anyone. No one stopped to see. No one stopped to help. And I grew up with that inside me, that hole that was never filled." His voice became firmer. "But I can be different. I can be the person I needed when I was a kid. I can see. I can stop. I can be present." Claire's eyes were moist, but she didn't cry. "That's why you came back," she said. "That's why I came back." Leah let go of his hand and hugged him, tightly, her thin arms squeezing his waist. "I'm glad you came back," she said, her face hidden in his jacket. Thomas knelt down and hugged her back. He felt something break inside his chest, something that had been trapped for a long time. Claire stood watching the two of them. She didn't say anything. She just watched. And Thomas saw something change in her face, a softening, an acceptance, as if she finally understood. He wasn't a stranger trying to enter their lives. He was someone who understood, someone who had been where they were, someone who knew what it was like to be afraid, to be in need, to feel alone, and someone who wanted to do things differently. Leah pulled away. Thomas stood up. Claire took a step forward, stood close to him, looking into his eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for trusting us, for showing us this." Thomas nodded. "Thank you for letting me." They stayed there for a few more minutes, looking at the street, the house, the memories, and then they got back in the car. But something had changed. Thomas had shown where he came from. He had shown who he was. He had opened a door that had been closed for a long time, and Claire had seen it, and she had understood, and for the first time, she was no longer alone carrying everything. She had someone by her side, someone who understood, someone who stayed. It was a Monday when Claire's world collapsed again. Thomas had just arrived at the diner, 5:30 in the afternoon as usual. The doorbell jangled. He walked in smiling, ready to have coffee and hear about Leah's day at school. But when he looked at the counter, he realized something was wrong. Claire was standing still, motionless, with a paper in her hand. Her face was pale. Her eyes were fixed on the paper. Her hands were trembling. Leah was at the corner table, drawing, oblivious to everything. "Claire!" Thomas approached her. She didn't answer. She just kept staring at the paper. Thomas moved closer. "What happened?" Claire blinked. She lifted her eyes, and he saw it. He saw the panic. He saw the desperation. He saw everything collapsing in her light eyes. "The rent," she said, her voice weak. "It's going up." "How much?" She showed him the paper. Thomas read it. The increase was absurd. Almost 50%. Starting next month. "I won't be able to do it," Claire said. Her voice started to crack. "I won't be able to pay that. I can barely pay what it is already. This is impossible." Her hands were trembling so much that the paper fell to the floor. Thomas picked it up. "Read it again." He felt anger. Anger at the landlord. Anger at the injustice. Anger at everything that always weighed down on those who were already at their limit. Claire covered her face with her hands. "I don't know what to do," she said, and now her voice was really breaking. "I have nowhere to go. I don't have anyone. I don't have any savings. I don't—" She stopped, took a deep breath, tried to control herself. Her hands were still covering her face. "I'm sorry," she said, quickly wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't know what to do." Thomas didn't know what to say, so he just stood there, present. "I work so hard," Claire continued, more to herself than to him. "I work every day. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I open the diner at 6. I stay until 8 at night. I do everything alone. I cook, I clean, I serve, I buy, I pay. And it's still not enough. It's never enough." Her voice was heavy with tiredness, with years of carrying everything alone. She looked at Leah, who continued drawing, innocent, unaware of anything. "How am I going to tell her? How am I going to tell her that we'll have to leave here, that I failed her again?" "You didn't fail," Thomas said firmly. "Yes, I did. I can't give her a stable life. I can't give her security. I can't—" "Claire, stop." She looked at him, her eyes red, her face wet with tears. "You didn't fail. You're doing everything you can, more than most people would, more than you should have to do alone. This isn't failure. This is life being unfair." Claire shook her head. "But the result is the same. We're going to lose the house. I'm going to have to close the diner. I'm going to have to—" She couldn't finish. She just started to cry, quietly, trying not to make a sound so Leah wouldn't hear, trying to control herself even when everything inside her was screaming. Thomas took a step forward, and he hugged her. Claire was tense for a second. Then she collapsed. She rested her face on his shoulder and cried for real now. Everything she had been holding back, everything she hadn't let out, the entire weight of carrying everything alone for so long, it all came out there, in that hug. Thomas just held her. He didn't say anything. He just let her cry. Let her feel. Let her break down. When she finally stopped, she pulled away, wiped her face with the back of her hand, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. I never do this. I never. I always hold it in. Always. I have to be strong. For Leah. For everything. Sometimes you can't hold it in, and that's okay." Claire nodded, took a deep breath, tried to compose herself, passed her hands over her face, wiped away the last tears. "I need to think of something. I need to find a way. There's always a way. There always has been. We will find one." She looked at him. We. Claire didn't say anything. She just looked at him with those tired eyes and nodded. That night, Thomas didn't sleep. He stayed awake, lying in the big, empty bedroom of his apartment, thinking, calculating, feeling. He had money, a lot of money. He could solve the problem with one phone call. He could pay her rent for years if he wanted to. He could buy the whole building if necessary. But it wasn't about money, it was about what was right, what made sense, what he really wanted. And the more he thought, the clearer one thing became. He didn't just want to solve Claire's problem, he wanted to be with her, and with Leah, truly, not as someone passing through, as someone who stays, as someone who wakes up together, as someone who shares everything. When the sun came up, Thomas already knew what he was going to do. The next day, he arrived at the diner earlier than usual. 7 in the morning. Claire was opening up, lifting the chairs, turning on the lights, preparing the coffee. Leah must still be sleeping upstairs. He had a coffee in his hand. He had bought it at the corner coffee shop. Claire looked at him, surprised. "You're early. I needed to talk to you." She tensed up. Her shoulders stiffened. She must have thought it was something bad. Thomas walked in, put the coffee on the counter, and took a deep breath. "I thought about what you told me yesterday." Claire looked away. "Thomas, I don't want charity. I didn't tell you to—" "It's not charity," he interrupted. "It's not about money. It's about something else." She looked at him, confused. Thomas gathered his courage. "Come live with me." Silence. Claire blinked, as if she wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "What?" "Come live with me. You and Leah. I have a big apartment. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. There's room. And you need a place." Claire shook her head. "Thomas, I can't accept that." It's not out of pity," he said firmly. "It's not because I feel sorry for you. It's because we're a family. We may not have started that way. It may not look that way to everyone, but that's what we are. And family takes care of each other." His voice softened. "I wake up thinking about you. I spend the whole day waiting for the time to come here. I come here and I feel at home, more than I feel in my apartment, because you are here, because here I'm just me, just Thomas, not the businessman, not the rich man, just me. And that is everything." Claire's eyes were moist again. "It's not about solving your problem," Thomas continued. "It's about wanting to be together, about wanting to share, about wanting to build something real with you, because I love you, I love Leah, and I love you, and I want to walk with you every day, not as a visitor, as family." Claire covered her mouth with her hand. Tears were streaming down now. "You don't have to answer now," Thomas said. "Think about it. Talk to Leah. Decide in your own time, but know that the door is open. It always will be." Claire didn't say anything. She just looked at him, and then she nodded. Slowly, with her eyes. It wasn't a verbal yes, but it was yes. It was acceptance. It was trust. It was surrender. Thomas felt something explode in his chest. Relief, happiness, fear, all at once. "Really?" he asked, needing to be sure. Claire wiped her tears and nodded again, firmer this time. "Really." And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. A real smile, big, bright, full of hope. Thomas smiled too, and the two of them stood there in the middle of the empty diner, smiling at each other, because that's what they were. A week later, it was Leah's school presentation day. The school was holding an event. The children had rehearsed a small play, a story about friendship and courage. Leah had a small role, 2 lines, but to her, it was huge. She had been nervous for days. Thomas had helped her rehearse. Sitting on the floor of his apartment, which was now theirs, repeating the lines with her, making her laugh when she made a mistake, encouraging her when she thought she couldn't do it. "I am the best friend," Leah would say, "and I will help you." "Perfect," Thomas would say. "See how you know it." Claire had done her hair, pinned back with 2 little flower clips. And she put on the pink dress, the same one from the costume party. Leah had specifically asked to wear that one. "It's my lucky dress," she had said. Now, the 3 of them were in the car, on their way to school. Leah was in the back seat, looking out the window, nervously touching her clips. "What if I forget my line?" she asked for the 5th time. "You won't forget," Claire said, turning around. "You rehearse so much, you know it by heart." "But what if I do forget?" "Then you improvise," Thomas said. "Say anything. No one will know." They're not waiting for the exact words. They're waiting for you. Really? Really? Leah seemed a little calmer. When they arrived at the school, the yard was full. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, siblings, everyone talking, waiting. There were chairs lined up facing the stage, balloons on the ends, posters made by the children hung on the walls. Leah held Claire's hand tightly. "I'm scared." Claire knelt down, meeting her eye level. "You are brave," she said. "You always have been, even when you're scared. And we'll be there, watching you. You can look at us whenever you need to. We'll be there. Promise?" "I promise." Thomas knelt down too. "You're going to ace it," he said. "Seriously, it was incredible seeing you there. Just go up there and do it. And if you get nervous, just look at us." Leah smiled. A small smile, but real. She went in with the other children, disappeared inside the school. Thomas and Claire went to the audience, plastic chairs in the yard. They sat side by side. Claire was tense, fidgeting with her hands. Thomas held her hand. She squeezed back. The presentation began. The lights dimmed. The music started. The children came in. Leah was in the middle. The pink dress stood out. Her blonde hair shone under the lights. She looked out at the audience, searched with her eyes, and she found them. Claire and Thomas, side by side, looking at her, smiling. Thomas waved. Claire blew a kiss, and Leah smiled back. It was no longer nervousness, it was confidence. It was security. She had someone there. She had two someones there, watching, cheering. Present, the play began. The children spoke. They moved. Leah stayed quiet, waiting for her turn, but steady. When her turn came, she took a step forward. "I am the best friend," she said, her voice clear, "and I will help you." Claire squeezed Thomas's hand tightly. Thomas felt his chest tighten. Pride, emotion, love. Leah continued. She said the second line. She didn't miss a single word. Her voice came out firm, clear, confident. When she finished and returned to her spot, Claire had tears in her eyes. "She did it," she whispered. "She did it," Thomas said. The presentation continued. Other children spoke. The story unfolded, and finally ended. The children returned to the stage and bowed. People applauded, shouted, cheered. And then the children ran to the audience. Leah ran straight to them, arms open, huge smile, eyes sparkling with happiness. Claire stood up and picked her up, hugged her tightly, spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "You were perfect," she said. "Perfect. You didn't miss anything." Thomas stood beside them. Leah reached out an arm to him. He came closer, stroked her blonde hair. "You crushed it," he said. "Seriously, it was amazing seeing you up there." Leah laughed. "Happy, complete. I saw you," she said. "I looked, and I saw you, and then I wasn't nervous anymore." "We were cheering the whole time," Thomas said. "I knew it," Leah replied, hugging both of them. In the middle of the crowded schoolyard, in the middle of the chaos of parents hugging their children, in the middle of the noise and the happiness, they were a family that had formed in a different way, without blood, without paper, without anything but choice. But it was real, it was true, and it was forever. 6 months later, Thomas woke up to the smell of coffee coming from the kitchen. He slowly opened his eyes, stretched his body, and stared at the ceiling for a few seconds. And he smiled. He got up, put on a shirt, and went to the living room. Claire was in the kitchen, her back to him, making breakfast. Her blonde hair was tied in a messy bun. She was wearing an old top and sweatpants, nothing special, but to Thomas, it was everything. "Good morning," he said. She turned and smiled. "Good morning, coffee is almost ready." He walked over, kissed her forehead. She leaned into him for a second. A simple gesture, natural, as if it had always been this way. "Is Leah awake yet?" Thomas asked. "She is. She's in her room choosing an outfit." Thomas walked to the hallway. He stopped at Leah's bedroom door. The room was small, but it was hers, totally hers. The walls were covered with drawings, old and new drawings, houses, flowers, people, animals, castles, fairies. There was a bed with colourful sheets, a small table with scattered crayons, a low bookshelf full of books and toys, stuffed animals piled up in a corner. Leah was standing in front of the open closet, looking at her clothes with a serious face. "Which one should I wear?" she asked when she saw Thomas. "Whichever one you want." "But which one is prettier?" Thomas walked into the room and looked. He pointed to a blue shirt with little stars. "That one." Leah picked it up and smiled. "I thought so too." She got dressed quickly, grabbed her backpack that was already packed, and ran to the kitchen. Thomas stayed there for another second, looking at the room, at the drawings on the walls, at the neatly made bed, at the things spread out with that organized messiness of a child, and he felt that good tightness in his chest. She had a room, a space, a place that was just hers. He went back to the kitchen. Leah was sitting at the table, eating toast with jam. Claire was pouring his coffee. The TV was on low, news that no one was paying attention to. They sat together, had coffee, talked about the day. Leah had a math test. Claire had a meeting with a supplier. Thomas had a contract to close. Normal things. Routine. Life. But it was a routine full of laughter, of inside jokes, of glances that said more than words. When they finished, Claire got up to take Leah to school. Thomas offered to go too, but Claire said it was fine. "See you later," she said, kissing him quickly. Leah hugged Thomas. "Bye." "Are you going to help me with my homework today?" "I am. Promise. I promise." She skipped out. Claire grabbed her keys and bag, waved at Thomas, and they left. Thomas was left alone in the apartment, but it wasn't that empty silence from before. It was different, because he knew they would be back, that the house would fill up again. That life would continue there with him. He washed the cups, tidied the table. He walked past Leah's room and closed the door she had left open. He walked past the bedroom he now shared with Claire. The bed was unmade, her clothes mixed with his in the closet, her things on the dresser, perfume, lotion, a book half read, signs that she was there, that she was staying, that she wasn't leaving. Thomas got ready and went to work. The day passed quickly. Meetings, calls, papers to sign, but he didn't get lost in it like before, because now he had something waiting for him at home. When he returned, in the late afternoon, Claire was in the living room working on her laptop. She had started a small online business. She sold homemade sweets. Cakes, pies, chocolate truffles? Still small, but it was growing. And the best part, she was breathing easier now. She no longer had that constant weight on her shoulders. She no longer had that fear in her eyes. She no longer had that deep exhaustion. She still worked hard, but it was different, because now she wasn't carrying everything alone. "How was it?" Thomas asked. "Good, I closed 3 orders today." "That's great," she smiled, a calm smile. "Happy." Leah came running out of her room. "Thomas, you're back. Come help me with math." He dropped his briefcase and went. They sat together at her small desk. They did the homework. Leah complained about the difficult problems. Thomas explained with patience. She understood. She smiled. She continued. After homework, they ate dinner together. Claire had made pasta, simple but delicious. They talked about everything and nothing. Leah talked about school. Claire talked about the orders. Thomas listened, commented, laughed. After dinner, they watched a movie together, the 3 of them on the sofa. Leah in the middle, her head on Thomas's shoulder, her feet on Claire's lap, a blanket over everyone. When the movie ended, Leah was already asleep. Thomas carried her to her room. Claire straightened the bed. Together, they tucked her in, covered her, turned off the light. They left the door ajar the way she liked it. They went back to the living room, sat on the sofa. Claire leaned into him. Thomas put his arm around her shoulders. They sat in silence, a comfortable silence, of people who don't need to talk to be together. "Are you happy?" Claire asked softly. Thomas thought, and answered sincerely, More than I ever thought possible. Claire turned her face and looked at him, smiled, kissed him slowly. Me too. And they stayed there, in the house that was now theirs, sharing bills, stories, silences, and affection. Thomas thought back to that day, months ago, when he had seen a little girl sitting alone on the sidewalk, when he had bought a simple lilac costume, when he had given it without expecting anything in return. And he looked around now. At the apartment full of life, at Leah's room with drawings on the walls, at Claire next to him, at the life they had built together, the costume that had started as a simple lilac cloth bought in some random store, given on an impulse, it had turned into a home, it had turned into a family, it had turned into belonging. And Thomas finally understood what had been missing his whole life. It wasn't success, it wasn't money, it wasn't recognition. It was this. It was belonging. It was being seen. It was being present. It was loving and being loved. It was having a place to return to, people to care for, people who cared for him. It was being family. And he had found it. In a simple gesture, on a random sidewalk, in a moment of connection, he had found everything. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.